We're going to go over selections somewhat briefly, just for those of you who haven't had time with Photoshop yet. That way you know how to do this section. And then afterwards, we're going to jump into, nope, lights, thank you. Then we're going to jump into working on your random CD, and I will also hand out Project 2 that you can start brainstorming in between now and the next class. I just grabbed a couple random photos off of Pexels for this, but let's pretend I am working on my CD, and my CD in a new document. It doesn't matter if you're photo or print. I'm going to do the 8x8. What I'm mostly looking for is an 8x8 and is the resolution 300. If we're doing something in Photoshop and I don't say the resolution, just assume it's going to be 300 because all of my classes are print dominated, so for me it's always going to be 300. That's the it's sort of the default resolution for that. All right, so we'll go ahead and hit create. So let's pretend this is the document that I am working for this. So I brought in this lovely mountain. So let's say this was my randomly generated image that we're going to use for my album cover, and I need to get it into the other document. One thing that you can do for the selection, in this case, let's say I know I want all of this photo to go into that other document. Command A is going to select all, just like it does in InDesign, just like it does in Illustrator. So everything is selected. If you forget where it's at, it's all under the Select menu, Select All. You're going to be using Command A a lot, so I'm going to recommend, as we said, we're going to get used to those quick keys, so add that one to your arsenal. And we're going to copy said mountains, go into our new document, and we are going to paste it. So that photo is giant, so we need to get it scaled down. I'm just going to zoom out. Same thing as Illustrator, Command negative zooms out, plus zooms in. 0 is going to give us our reset. All right, so how do I do a free transform? What's our quick key for that? Transform. Command T. Yeah, not a trick question. So we're going to free transform our mountain down. Thanks to the new update, we don't have to hold the shift key to constrain our proportions. So I'm just going to make sure that it, sort of fits on this page. I can make the, aesthetic decision. Do I want more like this? Do I want more like that? That's fine. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want for that. This is going to be the start of our album. All right, so I'm going to go back into our snow-covered mountain. I want to deselect. You guessed it, Command D is going to deselect it. So if I don't want it selected anymore, I can deselect it, or I can just, if let's say I had something selected that was smaller, Command D is going to deselect it, or I can just click off of it. So it's just like in Illustrator when I say, click off, click back on. It is the exact same thing. Just as a side note, if you're still in your selection tools, any of them, you can still move your selection around. So if you're like, no, actually, you know what, I want more of this texture. You can keep moving this around however you wish. If you go to your move tool, which seems like maybe it should be logical that it would move it. Oh, it does. It moves the whole block. So just keep that in mind. If you don't want that whole block to move, just switch it to the regular selection tools that you're going to be able to navigate better. You can use your up arrow, down arrow, left arrow, right arrow. So you do have flexibility with that. We have our rectangle selection tool, so it's going to make rectangles. So let's say I want some of this. I'm going to copy it. You guessed it. I'm going to paste it. It's going to be this weird amalgamation by the time I'm done with it. I do want to move this. So I hit my V, which is our move key, and I'm going to bring that side of the mountain over because maybe I want for some reason it to look like that. All right. I'm going to deselect, and then if I hold my shift key down, it's going to constrain the proportions to a square. So if I wanted a square to fit on our next page, there we go. We can have that square. So for my example, it's just going to be this, weird collage sort of thing. Like I had said in the last class when I handed this out, just because you got the one image doesn't mean you have to use all of it. We can take pieces and parts of it and do stuff with it. Same dealio with the elliptical. We can make the ellipse. Let's move it to like this part of the mountain range. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it in. I'm going to go to my move, which is the V, and I'm going to slide it over. And I'm going to deselect with Command D. And if I hold down my Shift key, you guessed it, it's going to change into a circle. So it will constrain those proportions, cut and paste. Free transform. What's our shortcut? Command T. Yay, there we go. I'm just going to scale that down just a little bit, and you're like, well, okay, why are we worrying about so many of these weird shapes? Don't forget we have our layer styles, so we can go through and make, you know, our own unique image based on this, and when you bring it in as various layers, you can rearrange it accordingly. So you can make, you know, different arrangements, different stylings, and different layer adjustments. So this is going to give you a little bit more design flexibility to it. Okay, the next two come with a sort of caveat, and I'm going to make a new document for them. This is going to work for, web, and I'm just going to make the common web page. The next two are going to be used more if you get into the coding / building side of web design, so more of the back end. And if you need to, in this case, let's just pick a weird magenta. So we have our paint bucket tool. This is the tool I think everyone was like, where is this at in Illustrator? And it doesn't exist there. But our paint bucket does exist in Photoshop. So let's say my website, I want it to have all of this color. Side note, just use the hex code, but just in case. So in this case, just use the hex code. That's how you put it in your CSS. But let's say you weren't there yet and it's one of your first projects and you're like, but I want it to be this color. Is that rain? Yeah. Oh, geez. That's very loud. So I'm going to grab my single row marquee tool and I'm going to click and drag. Now, I'm not going to let go just so you can see it. The single rows are literally going to be 1 pixel, either height or width. So when I let go, you can be like, well, okay. I'm going to copy this. Whenever you have something in your clipboard in Photoshop, when you make a new document, you can see it shows up. 1 pixel by whatever width. I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and I'm going to put that pink there. So I just pasted it, and then I would save it as, I don't know, backer or whatever for the web. All right, why is this important, deselecting? When I look at my image size, if this was going to be my website right now, it's a 3 meg file, and that's just for our default. If I go into what we just created, image size, 4K. So who would rather wait a really, 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 really long time for their page to load? Anyone? We love slow web pages, right? That's sarcasm. None of us like slow web pages. So one of the early mistakes in web design is doing something like this and importing that whole giant file as your background. You don't need a 3 to 4 meg file. You just need the 4K one. So this is teeny tiny. Your web page is going to load like this when it's this way. Adversely, what if you wanted a gradient? So when we do gradients in Photoshop, they are foreground to background color. So whatever your foreground color is going to be what starts it, and then your background is going to finish it. It's all under your paint bucket. So let's say I want a nice transition, a fade from, so let's say the header would be at the top and then the bottom of our page would just be white, so we wouldn't have to worry about that. It's just to give a little bit of pop at the beginning of the page. This one is going to be the vertical one. We're going to take that one sample, copy and paste it, and this can be put into your CSS, and both of these are either on an X or a Y repeat. So if you get into code or into code, this is a really nice way to get color in quick and in low memory. So like I said, something like that was plain, just use the hex code. So the hex code, double clicking, is right there. So when you do your CSS style, just dump that hex in. It would be even less memory than what we're doing here. But for something that's going to be, and I have too many files open, let me close a couple. If something's going to be on the Y, it's going to be easier to do it just with this one pixel. So in my class, you're probably never going to need to use this, but I know some of you are on the design web path side of things. Put this in the back burner and remember it when you get to that class. It's going to come in super handy. So those two, not too applicable in print, going to use it all the time. You're going to use the elliptical and the rectangular as well. And for any of our selections, you can grow to it. So if I hold down my shift key, you can make different shapes with these. And you can see when I'm holding down that shift key, if it's gone, it's just the normal marquee tool. When I put down the shift key, there's a plus beside it. If I want to make a hollow space here, option key, and it's going to draw through that. So it's going to sort of block it out. You can also add the circle to it if you so desire. And you can keep adding these until the cows come home. For something like that, that's a weird shape. It's not quite as applicable. But where we're getting to the next ones, it's sort of like the pen tool. Like where you start, you're going to probably have to add a little bit to it. So just know the shift key is going to help you add to it. All right, so our lasso tool. I can do freestyle like that. Let's copy and paste that because I'm just going to make, like we said, a really weird piece over here. Transform, scale it down. Beautiful. That's the $1 million product right there. All right, going back into that, we also have under that the polygon, which is going to give us our zigzags. This is, say you're taking photos at an art gallery and they want a poster and you're like, ugh, this background looks awful. Well, if you just click around the frame, you're going to at least be able to separate exactly whatever it is that you're trying to peel off the page. So you can do weird shapes or it could be really purposeful. You start where you end, copy and paste that into our crazy document. Whoop. I think I'll just use part of it on that one. All right. And the last one is going to be the one you guys probably like the most is the magnetic. So let's say I want just the mountain. You just sort of quick draw over the piece. And I'm just being really quick and loose. I'm not really... Whoops. Hey mouse, when your mouse does that, just double click, deselect, do it again, because we know our mice here are kind of wonky. There it goes again. All right. It's going to get kind of close. It's going to have no idea what to do around the edges. And then double click to let it go. All right, so we've gotten the bulk of our mountain. We're going to need to switch out to our regular and just start cleaning things up. So we do our plus. And I'm just going to clean up to that mountain, down and over. I'm going to zoom in. And I think this one of the big mistakes with these tools is you don't quite get in enough. All right, let's add this corner. And I'm just going to go really loose around the pine trees. I need to get rid of this part, so I switched the tool to the minus. All right, let's pretend we did all those. That's going to take me forever. So for this, the trick with the lasso tool is I think everyone wants to just keep drawing the whole way. And if you mess up, you messed it all up. So it's much easier to take it in logical swoops. So I sort of go with a curve and I swoop down. I go to the next curve and I swoop down. Curve, swoop. This needs taken away. Opposite curve, swoop. So it's going to give you a little bit more control over it. So if you go the whole way through and mess up, it doesn't matter because you've done them in tiny little baby steps. So haste would maybe make the proverbial waste. I would clean that up. I was kind of choppy on that one. And then negative. We want to clean this one up. And this is nice because it's a nice little swoop. And these all have undos, so if you mess up, it's okay. Just do an undo, or 10, however many you need. I'm not going to do all of this. So we would go through, clean all of that up. If I were to copy it, I could paste it in. Or let's say I wanted to make these mountains purple. And I know we said that we had a million ways of changing something to a color. And we could do a color change, but it's going to change all of it. What if I want the sky blue and then just the mountains to be purple? Make a new layer, I already have my purple. Go into your paint bucket. So what's happening is on this new layer, it's just air. So if I click the purple in here, it fills all of this. And then when I do my layer styles, the sky stays the same, but I can make just the mountains purple. Or I could make the sky a weird lime green. I'm going to deselect now so that we can see it. This is now a color block to a color block, so the color is just going to fill right in. I'm going to revisit this, and what happens if I lighten it? So now we can get these much more interesting effects with it, and because they're color swatches, you can change them to any color because each one are individual now. So you have a little bit of design flexibility with it. If we were to just look at the layer, it just looks like these weird little zigzag shapes. But if we have the image on there, we can have both of them. All right, I don't want this layer. I'm fine with how it is, and I'm going to go ahead and trash that. I'm going to delete it. But there's nothing that says also with this in class that you have to stick with it looking realistically. Magnetic polygon. Okay, so object selection's new. I haven't played around with that. We're all on the even playing field for that one. Play with it. Do what you want with it. Quick selection tool. I'm just going to zoom out. Functions similarly as what we saw with the magnetic lasso, only when I click and draw and sort of paint over the areas, it's going to grab whatever is close to that and wherever it is I'm drawing. So this one's nice because it does have a pretty smart, and then I missed this part, hold down your shift key, that way you can get it, and I missed this part, hold down your shift key, so it's the same ones. You can change and add and grow just like the last time. Magic Wand is the old school selection. So once upon a forever ago, it was just the marquees, one lasso, and magic wand. So you only really had 4 things to worry about. What's nice with this is you can, same thing, all of these are doing roughly the same thing. If I want the sky separated, I click, I hold down my shift key, and I keep adding it. So I can get that selection relatively quickly. So same dealio as last time. If I wanted a hot pink sky, new layer, I'm able to get that pretty quickly. I'm going to undo that one. One thing that's interesting with this is if you're looking to like cut something out, so like the cat, or I just want this sort of spirally look to it. I look for really plain backgrounds whenever I'm doing my image editing, so that if I want to grab just the background, you know, it's going to be easier to get to the cat. We often think, I got to cut the cat out. What happens if instead you're like, all right, if I could just separate the background, it'll be way easier to get to said cat. So instead of focusing on, remember we said on day 1, the negative's just as important as the positive? The negative's going to get us to the positive. So we saw select all in the menu. You also have select inverse. So I don't want this, I want that. So I have to actually tell it, flip itself. Now just the cat is selected, and my CD design just got way moodier. Make sure you're on the right layer. There we go. Copy it and paste it. Cat, where are you going? I don't know where cat's going. It has a mind of its own. It's a cat. Maybe it's just teeny tiny. I'll go and I'll look, see why cat's not coming later. Another thing with the magic wand that often needs discussed is contiguous. Tolerance. Right now, this is the area. I do still use this one the most because I feel like it has the most control. The tolerance is saying wherever I click, it's going to grab the closest 32 pixels to this. It's not grabbing quite enough, so what happens if I take it to 50? Oh, that looks a little better. 80. Ooh, perfect. It grabbed all of the background. So you sort of have to massage it just that little bit, but you can click pretty quickly with that. If we go to this one, so if I just want the black lines, but I don't want to worry about the white. I just want those gone. If I click, I mean, yeah, you can sit here and you can hold down your shift key, do, oop, the whole way around the entire document. Contiguous. When this one is clicked, it says whatever I click, it's only going to sample from those edges. So if an edge is stopping it, it's not going to select anymore. If you turn it off, what it's going to say is wherever I click, everything of that value is going to be selected. So the whole, everything, that's going to be, in this case, the white is going to be selected. Let's select inverse it. Now just that black is selected. I'm going to copy it. Hopefully it's going to paste this time. There it is. I didn't have to worry about the background then. If you have layer styles, that's not going to be so much of a problem. But if you're not working with layer styles, you might have a little bit of a problem with it. So up arrow, down arrow, move key. If things are getting hard to maneuver, select all your layers and just lock them. That is one massive nuisance with the new one. It's a little bit trickier. It wants to select all the layers under it, which is kind of weird. But you can select just all of it with one click instead of holding down that shift key and getting everything. Okay, I think we covered them all. And we'll look at object selection together later, or just play around with it and see what happens. So we have the select menu. It's doing its stuff up there. We have others that we're going to be getting to. For now, we're just going to worry about this section. So you have your marquees, you have your lassos, you have your wands, and today we also threw in paint bucket and gradient, so you have a little bit more flexibility with that. One thing that did come up in the other classes was the type. So I know we went over the basics of type. CD cover. I'm just going to use all caps and make it scream. All right, let me make it a little bit bigger. And I'm holding down my shift command period. Remember, that makes it go up or down. Let's make it bold so we can really see it. Something that did come up, if we wanted to change the color, when you double click on it, double click on any of your colors, and you hit OK, it's going to change them that way. I'm going to do one undo. You can also do your layer styles with type. So if you wanted to look like it was fading or burning through or half of it was missing, your type's going to function exactly the same as any other layer, and you can have it have its own style and effect also. So you can add that to the mix today also when you get to the type part. I have made an upload area for it. Now that we're in the full swing of the semester, if it's not a PDF when you do upload it, I will knock points for it. So it has to be a PDF when you get to that stage. Only one is required for the turn-in. But I'm going to make a second area. Should you make more, I will take up to 5. Those other 4 will be due at the end of the semester, and that's going to be 5 points extra for each one, 4 extra credit points. So you could ultimately end up making 5 of these, and 4 of them will be worth extra credit points. So for the rest of the day, let's go ahead and work on our CD covers. They'll be due at the start of class on Thursday. The other 4, if you're doing extra credit, on the last class. So you'll have all term for the extras. All right, I'm going to turn this side of the lights on. Nope, wrong side. Sorry, guys. These lights. All right, the rest of the time is yours.